Welcome back, Gadgeteers. It's that time. Need to do an update to my system. As you can see over here, I'm on Fedora Core 37. So kernel 6.5, that's not too old. But I do need to do an update, and I wanted to show you in a little bit more detail how I usually do my updates. So I want to do it as if you've never seen it before. I usually go through them really quickly, and that's not really very fair. So we're going to slow down a little bit and go through the update together, just in case you have a Fedora system and you've never done an update before. We will be using the command line, but don't panic. There's only 3 commands we have to run, and it's really not bad. And then you reboot and it goes ahead and does the update for you. When it's over, you boot up and log in, everything's fine. This particular document I'm using is supplied by Fedora themselves. When I'm doing an upgrade, I like to use the document that comes from the distro that you have. So in this case, I have Fedora. The other thing I like to know is, how new is this particular document? Luckily, Fedora has been putting in not just the names of the people who created the document, but what version it applies to. And, you know, it probably applies to the older versions too. And when it was last reviewed. The document contains the contents. You probably will not be doing all of these. Matter of fact, you'll probably only be doing the first one. You don't have to do all that. Okay. So they recommend the command line upgrade. There is a GUI method, but I'm not a big fan of it. I've used it one time, and I've been on Fedora since, well, essentially Fedora 4 or 5. I can't remember anymore. This is what we do when we're going through the install. We're going to download the packages. We're going to reboot the system into a special environment, and then the packages will be installed, and then when completed, the system will reboot. So here is the first command we have to run. So these next 3 steps are going to be the most critical ones for you. So I'm going to select this particular command, and I'm going to copy it so I don't have to write this all down. Let's see what they have to say about step 1. Do not skip this step. System updates are required to receive signaling keys of higher versioned releases, and they often fix problems related to the upgrade process. That's kind of fancy, but essentially what they're saying is you're currently on, in my case, Fedora Core 37. Let's just make sure that you have the latest update for Fedora Core 37, because the update program may be relying on that to have the latest updates for 37. So we'll go ahead and do it. Whoops, we don't need that again. Let's paste in the command. If you think you might have highlighted something a little extra, like something like this, you can always just look at what you pasted in and make sure it's correct. It matches what you have here. If you didn't, you can just use the arrow keys. Make a liar out of me. There we go. Use the arrow keys and delete anything that you didn't intend to put here. Here's some text I have. I really didn't intend to have it there. So I'm going to backspace and get rid of the extra text. So now I'm ready to run the command. I'm going to press enter. It's going to ask me for my command But I'm already logged in. Why do I have to type my command again? We'll go ahead and type it in, and I think I might have made a typo. Hopefully not. I did not. In essence, the sudo command allows you to become an administrator temporarily to run administrative level commands or privileges. Normally, even though we are an administrator, we don't want to always be running as administrator, okay? Because if we were, it's possible we could encounter something while on the internet, on a browser or whatever, and whoever gets control of our computer would have administrative control. We don't want that. User control is much weaker, so there's much less that the bad guys can do. Sometimes you may see errors. In this case, I have one for a repo called VirtualBox, a repository where I get updates for VirtualBox. And it's saying the private signature verification is in error. So it's going to ignore the repository VirtualBox, and that's just fine. Then it says dependencies resolved, so all other dependencies have been resolved, and there's nothing to do. So we can go on to the next step, and we're going to install the DNF plugin to do the upgrade. So I'm going to highlight that text again and copy it. And whoops. We'll go ahead and paste it in. Press enter. And again, it says nothing to do, complete. So I already had the package installed because I've done upgrades on this system before. So what do I need to do next? Well, now we need to download the update packages. This won't take too long. We're going to go ahead and highlight this command. Again, we're running sudo, right? So we become an administrator temporarily. DNF is the download system we use in this version of Linux. And we're going to do system upgrade download release version 39, which is the current one as of this video. A couple of things you might want to think about. One is if your version of Linux is not 2 hops back, in other words, I'm Fedora 37 here, but I can go ahead and upgrade to 39 because it's only 2 hops. On the other hand, if the upgrade is more than 2 releases, they really recommend to do it in smaller steps. It's just safer. So on this particular document is a read more note, and you can go in and see how to do that. It's not difficult. You're just running the upgrade more than once. If you want to, you can also use 40 as your release number, your release version, or you can put in rawhide, and if you do that, your version of Fedora will be bleeding edge. So what that means is it's a version where updates happen frequently. They haven't been fully vetted yet. It's the rough equivalent of a beta, maybe even an alpha version of this particular operating system. So this is more for testing purposes. It's not really something I would consider ready to run on a daily basis. So I don't recommend it. You may see some packages have unsatisfied dependencies. Kind of like that one we did here, over here. I'm just going to let that go for right now. I can fix it later. We could run the command again, the one we ran earlier, and add best, which helps out. Also, we can do other things. There's quite a lot we can do. Hopefully we won't have to. Okay. So let's go ahead and paste in that command. Here comes my furnace, so I do apologize. We're going to press enter. Is our system fully upgraded to ensure that, before you continue, ensure that your system is fully upgraded. Do I want to continue? Yes. So basically what it's doing now is it's going out and it's going to download the upgrade files that we need. Now this could take quite a while. Depends how fast your network is and how fast your internet connection is. There's probably going to be 2 to 3 gigabytes of information. I wanted to say terabytes, but that's way too much. Anyway, so it'll take its time, as much as is necessary, and download Fedora 39. Once this gets done, and it'll be a bit, so it's asking about a tool called Open Source Proton, and it wants to know if I accept the GPG key. So it's an encryption key. I'm going to say yes. And here's another one. I will say yes for this one. I use the Proton VPN tool, so I know that I have installed Proton VPN on my system. Here again, we have a VirtualBox repo error. Okay, so much more than I thought. Now you might have noticed there were some errors there. If you do see those errors, continue to let the command run. I would not stop it. Usually it's not really too important. If something is bad enough, the install program will stop. So much more than I thought, 4.1 gigabytes. So I'm going to say yes, and it'll begin downloading the packages. So we have about the same amount of storage we have on a one-sided DVD, 4.1 gigabytes. It begins downloading the packages, and we have a total packages we need of 2,892, and we're currently on 206. Usually the download goes fairly quickly. You do want to make sure in your networks that you're on the fastest network you have available. I do have a 2.4 gigahertz network for compatibility for older systems, and the signal goes farther, so when I'm out in the backyard I can get a signal all the way into the backyard. But the 5 gigahertz signal that I have is much faster, of course. So things will download much faster. If we were on here, it'd probably be half as fast or even slower. And all those packages are done. We're going to use this command to, as they say, trigger the upgrade process. This will cause the machine to reboot immediately, and there will not be a countdown or confirmation. Much of the actual upgrade process will take place without the graphical interface running, so you'll just see text on the screen. Now, you may see a Fedora icon with a bar that's moving across. If you really want to see what's going on behind the scenes, kind of like looking at this, you can press the escape button and it'll show you what's going on behind the scenes. So we're already to 41%, not bad. Personally, I think this installation is easier than Windows. I have a really bad problem with Windows doing its updates right when you don't need it to. You go to a meeting, you're going to run a simple PowerPoint presentation, you boot up your computer and it says, well, I've got to do these updates. So you just have to wait, don't turn off your computer or something like that. Or you're ready to shut down for the night and you shut down your computer and it says, do not turn off your computer, updates are being installed. That kind of stuff really frustrates me. What I like about Linux, at least Fedora, I decide when I want to do the updates. And with the exception of an upgrade, so updates are something a little different, right? They're minor changes to individual packages as they become available. You can decide when you want to do the updates. You can decide when you want to do the upgrade. You're not forced into doing something you don't want. Some say, well, Windows is free. Well, it's not really free. The way you pay is with your personal information that is collected by Windows. This is not the case in Linux. Others will say, yeah, but my internet connection, the various tools that I use, like YouTube, know me and know everything about me. Yes, that's true, but at least the operating system doesn't know anything about you. So you got to ask yourself what your goal is. Do you want to be completely hidden? Or is your concern just to try to at least eliminate what's going on with your operating system? Another tool you can use is a VPN, a virtual private network. I know they're touted quite frequently on YouTube, and I want to make clear that they're not something that is going to hide you from different aspects of the internet. Okay, so maybe you are running Fedora and you get a VPN, and then you go and log into YouTube and you log into Facebook and so on and so forth. They know who you are, and they now know that you're coming from someplace completely different. They understand that you're using a VPN, and these services now have information about your VPN. Okay, so it really depends how private you want to be. If you want to be really private, you're not going to be using YouTube, Google, Gmail, Facebook, and so on. Okay, so it wants to know, do I want to install the key for the installer? And I'm going to say yes. All right, key is imported successfully. Some things take a minute or two. You just have to be patient. Don't try to rush it at steps like this. There's a lot going on. Don't press the enter key several times or hit escape or try to get out of it or close the application here, your terminal application. Just let it go about its business. If you really want to, go get a cup of coffee. If your system is slower than this one, it may take even longer. All right. Everything looks good. I don't see any errors except for the one that I had with VirtualBox. I'll deal with that later. Again, that's an application that I use, and I'm not overly concerned about it. Okay, so it says we're going to trigger the upgrade process the minute we release this command. So I'm going to pull my phone out and start recording a video, because you're not going to see this part because it won't be on screen capture anymore. All right, here we go. We're going to go back over here and edit, paste, and enter. And it wants my password. Okay, here we go. Hello, everybody. And I don't know if you can tell up here, it shows the latest kernel, at least for Fedora 37 anyway. It begins its reboot. And now, upgrading system. And you have a status bar here down at the bottom. If you want to see more data, I'm going to press the escape key. Now I can see oodles of information of all the things it's doing. In the case of my screen here, it is so tiny. I have the phone in really close because I can't read this, so it really doesn't do me any good to see it. There is some certain satisfaction to see that it's scrolling through different steps as it continues, but I don't know. Most of you may not want to see this, so I'm going to press escape, and we're going to go back. See if I can get it to come back in. And we're going to go ahead and let this complete, and then on reboot, and we come back into our GUI, you can join me again. All right, so we are back after the update. How do we know? Well, mainly because the update went great, but let's have a look at NeoFetch. Says here that the OS is now Fedora Linux 39. Everything else essentially is the same except for the kernel. Look how much newer that kernel is. If we wanted to, we could run uname-r again. Sorry, my cat's running around with his toy, I should say. Showing us the kernel version. FC39 tells us we are running Fedora Core 39. Actually, it's only called Fedora now. Yeah. Back in the old days, it was called Fedora Core, but not anymore. Just Fedora, but the updates still have, and the kernel still has FC for Fedora Core. So by habit, I want to call it Fedora Core because I used to be using it back then. Now, I wanted to point out that I did not do a backup. That is not, under most circumstances, the best idea. Because I feel highly confident about Linux, Fedora to be specific, the distribution, and I've done many updates, and they've always went really well, which is awesome. But you can't assume you can get away with it. So on your system, you should do a backup. I wanted to show you this article from TechMint, and I'll make sure all the URLs that we've talked about in this video are provided in the description. But there are 25 tools here you can look at about doing backups. I do want to say, by default, I only consider open source tools, so many of these are not open source. How can you know? Well, like Cloudberry Backup here, it doesn't say that it's open source. I could be wrong. I haven't looked at Cloudberry specifically, so I don't know. It wouldn't be fair of me to say it's not open source when it could be. See if it's got anything on here. No. rsync is a classic. It's simply a command that you run, so you may want to look into that. You could plug in a portable drive, 4 terabyte portable drive, an SSD drive, and run rsync of your home directory and send a copy over to an extra drive. There's other backups. There's one here I was thinking of trying. Notice FW Backups is free and open source software. This was the one I was thinking of trying. I've used Bacula before. It's free and open source, and it's a good backup program. It's somewhat complicated, but they're trying to make it enterprise level. Again, you can try it. You may find it interesting. Backup Ninja I've never used. I think it was Simple Backup. No, not Simple Backup. I'm sorry. That's for GNOME Desktop. You might want to get it if you're running the GNOME Desktop interface. I, of course, am running KDE Desktop interface. Okay, one of the tools I thought about trying out was KBackup. I don't know if it's open source. We can click this link and head over to the website. Sure looks open source. Let's see. KBackup is a backup program for Unix machines. It supports any OS supported tape drive. We don't have tape drives, so we'll count that one out. But there are many others that you should take a look at. Amanda's a really super popular one. Again, at least some of it is open source. Things may have changed. Sometimes companies will say it's open source in the sense that the underlying architecture is open source, but the graphical interface is not. So this is where you can download it. So it might be something you'd want to try. But anyway, check this out. There's so many different backup tools you could use. Truthfully, rsync is probably the most compatible. It has several other things that it can do, like send an update from your home directory to your rsynced destination directory, so it only sends files over that have changed. So there's all kinds of cool things you could do. Now, back to our update. So it recommends that you do a removal of the retired packages. So this makes sense, right? Because we really don't need to keep a bunch of packages around for Fedora 37 that are no longer going to be used or updated in any way. So because we jumped over 2 updates, 37, and we jumped 38 and went to 39, we need to run these commands. The first command installs the remove retired packages tool, and then the second one will actually do the removal. So let's go ahead and paste the first command in. And of course, I have to type my password in. Looks for the fastest mirror while we're waiting. Might as well grab this. I've done updates on this so many times. I really wonder if I need to go even farther back. Alright, here comes our tool. I'm hoping when we run remove retired packages, it'll actually tell us how many packages and how much storage will be saved. And we need another key for GPG. Excuse me, for Proton Technologies. And yes, let's see if VirtualBox works this time. Signing key not found. Okay. The total download, I don't know if you can see that here, is 23K. Not very big at all. And we have installed the package. So now we're going to run remove retired packages 37. I assume it's going to remove 38 as well. At least I hope so. All right. One of the cool things is when you do an update like this, you get all new applications as well. So all of your applications are updated. When you're on a active Fedora distro, you're getting all the new packages every time you do a upgrade to the latest Fedora spin, and thereafter do Fedora update. You will always get access to the latest packages. But 6 months from now, probably less than that, there will be Fedora 40 coming out, and then 41 6 months later. They do a release every 6 months. The release is usually supported for a year, I believe it is, with Fedora. You do have to do this at least once a year. Some people don't like that, and if you don't like that, you can consider a different distribution of Linux. There's quite a few out there. You could do the Ubuntu long-term release. You could do Debian 12, which has mostly only security updates and fixes. So something to think about. You may not need to necessarily use Fedora. If you don't want to do updates frequently, well, maybe you're going to go for a different distribution. And there's many out there. You just have to check them out. So this time we've got our VirtualBox signing key fingerprint. Work this time. Hoping we'll get a list of packages. Or preferably how much space will be freed up on our drive. Please tell me that's not the only package. Yes. Okay, wow. We just freed up 1.1K. Well, there's more we can do. We could look up a list of packages with broken dependencies, but that's not why we were here today. We just wanted to talk about doing the upgrade. And we've successfully completed it. So that's the end of our video. I hope you found something useful, and I always appreciate when you leave comments and correct me or give me tips or ideas when you do upgrades. I'm most curious about those who are on other Fedora distributions and how it's been for them to do upgrades and how often they have to do upgrades. So please leave a message and let me know. I'm very curious. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time on Fast Gadgets.